What up, what up? It's your man DJ Nabs in the lab. And listen, you're tuned in to Day One Radio.
The business.
Welcome back to another episode, another installment of Day One Radio right here on ablradio.com. That's Art, Beats, and Lyrics Radio to be exact. Make sure you download the very free, very accessible smartphone app for your iPhone and Android devices. And also make sure you check out the entire Day One Radio catalog at day1radio.com and check us out in the iTunes podcast section. My name is Maurice Garland. I'm one of your gracious co-hosts, and to my right I have...
the world-famous BP, Brandon LSK. What's going on, bro? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We got a very esteemed guest in the building today, man.
For sure, man. One of the best DJs, you know, they'll say in Atlanta, but it's really one of the best DJs going today, period. Been doing it real heavy for... what, 20 plus years at this point?
A little longer than that.
A little longer than that.
We'll just say that.
Right.
That sounds good enough.
For sure. If you don't recognize the voice, we got the one and only DJ Nabs in here. What's going on, bro?
Hey, man, my pleasure to be here with you guys.
Thank you. Pleasure to have you.
First time I can actually say I'm actually in the lab with Nabs.
Right.
And, you know, it's a funny story because when I first got on the radio back in the 90s, like full time, my girlfriend at the time said that... they were going to give me a show called Beats, Lyrics, and Hip Hop, kind of based on that Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend was like, at the time, she was like, nah, you always talking about your studio, the lab. You need to be in the lab with Nabs. And I was like, okay, whatever. It didn't even stick, but then, 20 years later, as we say.
It's still going.
Yep.
So, man, a lot of people, obviously find you synonymous with Atlanta because of your radio career, because of your time with So Def, but you're from Raleigh, right? North Carolina?
Actually from Durham.
Durham, North Carolina.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so how did you end up here from Durham?
Well, I started DJing in mid-'80s, and I actually was DJing for a girl named Frosty.
Okay.
Frosty was signed to Tommy Boy Records, which is the same label, Queen Latifah,
right.
Planet Rock, and all that. So, which was a big deal for somebody out of Durham. And her record was an answer record to LL Cool J's record, I Need Love. Hers was the female version called I Need Love Now, but Love Still.
Every record back then had a response. So that was crazy.
And it worked for her. And so we got on the road and started doing shows and stuff like that. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because it's one thing to have an aspiration because you see people on TV and it's something you want to do, because I saw Jam Master Jay and Grandmaster D from Houdini, etc. It's another thing to actually start doing it. But after that record kind of faded out, Frosty went to college. And I was stuck in Durham like, I had been exposed to this world.
You had the itch. You got to go.
That was it. And a friend of mine had come here to Atlanta, graduated from DeVry, and brought me down here to do his graduation party. And I never left. And that was 1988.
Wow.
You sound like one of my cousins, man, because that's how a lot of my family up in Pittsburgh wound up in Atlanta. They came down here for Freaknik, slept on my mom and dad couch, and just never left.
Yes. I think people when they talk about Atlanta, or they say New Atlanta, and because of the movies and reality shows and all of the history that Atlanta has had in like the music industry, especially with hip hop, I can see why they would come to Atlanta. But I always say when I moved here, it was the same thing, but not, like it wasn't like hip hop. It was just a great black city, and I felt like I could make it happen here. And that was 1988, and it happened. You know what I mean? And Atlanta has continued to grow, and I always felt at home here.
And but I just y'all saw that Deion Sanders interview not too long ago, right? Where Deion was talking about the reason why he was happy that he got drafted by Atlanta and why he chose to stay. And when he played baseball, he made sure he came here for the Braves too. He said the same exact things. Like, I saw black folks winning down here. I wanted to play in a city where black folks were winning outside of sports, just winning in life, period.
Winning in life.
Hey, man.
Exactly.
I always say Atlanta is the first place, and mind you, I came out here when I was super young to go to college, but it was the first place I had seen black people excelling financially, legally.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you seen all the stuff, but you knew where it came from. But here, it's like I see people dropping their kids off to school in Bentleys and stuff. I'm like, what do they do?
I was going to Magic City, being blown away, of course, by the women in there, right?
Yeah.
Especially being a young man. But I also saw Deion Sanders, and I also saw MC Hammer, and, you know, all the stars that were big at the time, Bobby Brown, you know what I mean? And I had $25 in my pocket, like.
But you
I
in
was
the same
in there
room
watching it. I was like, yo, I'm gonna be somebody one day. You know what I'm saying?
And that was before Making It Rain, so you could kind of lightweight be in the mix.
Right. I think it's like all perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's great. We can look at Atlanta right now. It's 6 million plus, I think, the population sign. And I never forget the population sign was like 1,500,000 and something when I moved here.
Right.
And I said, yo, this is the same Peachtree Street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I used to, you know, be on the bus on. You know what I mean? So Atlanta's incredible to me. It has been in the beginning. It still is now.
Definitely, man. You were super heavy, and man, there's so much stuff we could touch on. But we gotta, since we're talking about the city, we gotta touch on the clubs a little bit, and
sure,
you know, Kaya, one of my favorite spots, period.
Okay.
Ever.
Because you came in the 90s, right?
Yeah, I came in the 90s.
Well, Kaya to me was my coming out party, so to speak, meaning I'd already done for about 4 years. I had been backing up Kriss Kross. We had done the Michael Jackson tour. We had done Arsenio Hall, Jay Leno, Soul Train, countless television shows around the world. I had done a Sprite commercial with the guys.
So people already know you.
Like, we had done all this stuff, but it wasn't me. It wasn't
Kriss
Nabs.
Kross.
It was Kriss Kross.
But people know you're fake because you back there. That's the light-skinned dude to be with Kriss Kross.
To me, kind of. I always say, what happened when I got that job we talking about, when I became in the lab with Nabs, I set up and rented Club Kaya out on my off night, which is a Sunday night.
Right.
And I literally set it up like a laboratory.
Yeah.
I put a table and had an operating thing. I used to wear an operating cap. The whole nine.
I
Now, that's the
remember all
early
of that.
days of Kaya. Now, not everybody remember because it wasn't packed then.
Yeah.
And I literally made it a lab. And then eventually, as the night picked up, people start loving the music. The night blew up. So in the lab with Nabs on the radio and in the lab with Nabs at Kaya people started to get the concept.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's why I say it was my coming out party. And then I used to back sell. Oh, by the way, I was the guy with Kriss Kross.
Gotcha.
I was the guy with Kriss Kross. I used to always do that because it wasn't necessary for me to say, oh, I'm Kriss Kross DJ. I had a radio show here in Atlanta, but I used to because I was like, that gave me my professional start.
So the whole lab thing obviously comes from people call it studio, the lab, whatever.
Right.
But did that also come from the fact that you don't just DJ, you always remixed, you always did a little bit of production, you done some of everything. So is that kind of where it came from?
I think so. My childhood aspiration was being a scientist until I realized that you really had to be really, really proficient in different studies, and that was difficult. And I think I naturally, because of music and my desire to be creative, I just started doing it. And because I studied guys and I used to really, you got to think, being from Durham, I did not see Jam Master Jay Scratch, or I didn't have the privilege of watching Grandmaster Flash in the park or none of that. I used to listen to the records and have to decipher what Mixmaster Ice was doing on UTFO records. Because again, that era was super special because there used to be a lot of scratching on records.
And every single hip-hop album had a DJ record.
Yes. So you had plenty of things to study. So in my Walkman headphones, I would study it, and I would go home and figure out, first of all, what sound did they use, and then tamper with that until, can I curse or no?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, tamper with that shit till I figured it out. So I just became, I guess, a scientist, so to speak, and I always had that attitude when it came to my DJing. I wanted to be the best of everybody I ever heard.
Was there anybody in Durham that was like, even if it was just a dude that DJed at the parties or whatever, that you kind of looked up to?
Yes, and this is you'll relate to this, but Shirley Caesar is from Durham.
Okay.
And her grandson Generette was the only person in town that had 1,200 turntables. Wow. They were $500 a piece for those that don't know.
And they cost more now, which is crazy.
Well, they cost exactly. They cost $900 now. If you can find them twice as much each because they're discontinued.
Yeah.
So he was. He had the equipment. I mean, his sound system was God. They used to call him, obviously, even if it wasn't a disco, they used to be Strike Force Disco. everything was disco back then. Even I was DJ Nabs on the disco.
Oh, man.
That's where Nabs come from.
That might be one of the worst hip hop names ever. The Nabisco Disco.
Yes, yo, my first flyer. But it was people like Jenna Red, and there was other guys. Smokehouse was on the radio, and there were definitely Fred James, my local guys. No doubt about it, that had the equipment. And I was like, yo, when I grow up, I want to have what they have.
Right. You remember your first party you ever DJ'd?
Yes. $50. 2 houses down from where I lived.
Okay.
Yep. And we were drinking private stock. I don't know if y'all know about that.
Yeah.
Private stock, yo.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you fast forward, man. You grinded out in Atlanta from 88. And you go on the road with Kriss Kross. How did you end up hooking up with JD and not only doing Kriss Kross, but just working with all of So So Def?
What the click was in the beginning was me, headliner, Speech, which they were from Secret Society, but Arrested Development. And I met Jermaine through Headliner. Headliner was always just a guy who just always wanted to connect people, hook people up. You know what I mean? I didn't even know that till much later after the fact, how instrumental he was in hooking up people with each other. So that's how I met Jermaine. I met him at Club Excess on Moreland Avenue, and he brought Silk Times leather with him.
We going back,
and he also that same night. 2 things I'm gonna tell you I remember distinctly. One was at that time, even though I was a young guy, I was a scratching DJ. I had to wear ties to work at the nightclub, even Club Excess. Okay, wow. So I looked a lot different than what you would think, even though it was back then, right? Because I was it was a job, and I didn't want to work at UPS. So I met Jermaine, and I asked him, I said, yo, you want to drink or something? He said, nah, man, I don't drink, man, I make beats. And I thought to myself, what does one got to do with the other? Right. But, okay, cool, right? And the other thing was he thanked me for playing JV and the Straight Jackets on the radio.
The other guy.
Yo, how you doing? I ain't seen you in a long while. The way you used to look and smile, I was chilling in the corner, sipping a beer. You did some cool, so baby come here. You look fine in your silken lace. It's after 7 and I love your baby face. Drink some wine, relax and chill, while I'll tell you the deal. You see, I'm the other guy, the one who'll get for you to call, and comes around the corner when he dogs in the mall. It's me you call when you wanna come, the one you get your new tricks from. Not that guy, baby, I don't sing. I turn you on to the bubble bath thing. You with your man, but you're really alone, cause you're going through the other guy's syndrome. Okay, man, what's up? Nah, I ain't did nothing. What you missing, Drew?
Because I was on V103, mixing for free, But V103 Fresh Party was how I was able to, put my name out there a little bit. And that's how Jermaine knew me, who I was, even though we hadn't met yet. So that's how we met. But once Arrested Development got their deal, because they got signed to Mike Malden, again,
Jermaine's father.
Yeah. I remixed Tennessee. I had to get my check from Mike Malden for the remix. And I gave Mike my tape and my cassette, and things just connected. He was like, oh, yeah, my son talked about you, blah, blah, blah. And we got this group, Kriss Kross. Woo, woo. I didn't even know who Kriss Kross was. I mean, the record was moving fast, and I don't think I had cable in my apartment like that. So right. I wasn't really aware of Kriss Kross like that. I'm telling you, man, 2 weeks later, I'm in rehearsal with them, with Kriss Kross. A couple weeks later, we shot the video at Masquerade, and then we went on to the Michael Jackson tour.
People don't understand, especially now, and even adults don't understand how instrumental the internet, satellite radio, and online radio is to spread music. I remember in 92 seeing Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby on Rap City.
Right.
Like really early. I was like, who is this corny dude?
Right.
I go to Long Beach.
I didn't think he was corny my first, so I thought that shit was jamming, man.
I didn't think it was jamming. But all
the Noops loved it. Ice Ice
Baby.
Of course the Noops was going crazy.
Of course they did. Until they wanted that check later on.
Right.
But I go to Long Beach for the summer to spend time with my family. My aunt didn't have cable.
Right.
So we just heard the radio, CDs, or whatever. I come back home and we had cable. And I'm like, this is the biggest record in the world. Because they wasn't playing that record on black radio in L.A. Right. Nobody in the hood was playing it in no cars. I had literally not heard it for 2.5 months. So it's the same thing with you with Kriss Kross. Like, okay, that's Kriss Kross, the 2 kids. You ain't have cable. You had no idea how big that record was.
Yeah, I had no idea. Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Now sometimes you can't sneak up on people.
Sometimes records make their way on the underground, college radio, the parties, this, that, and the third, and then it becomes whatever. But Jump superseded everything that was going on, especially once I start finding out the backstory. Yeah. The backstory for Kriss Kross was that, especially for that single Jump, was that the single was going to be Little Boys in the Hood.
Yeah.
That was going to be the single. But now, Mike Malden, JD's father, says that he saw Black Sheep perform The Choice Is Yours.
And they do the little jump.
And they were doing the jump. Yeah. And he said he called Jermaine and said, Jermaine, you need to do a record called Jump. So Jump was the last record made. They put it out and bam. Because Kriss Kross was also supposed to open up for their label mates at the time, Joe Public. But Jump went so crazy. Michael Jackson invited them on a tour, and that ended up being our first tour.
How was that? Touring with Kriss Kross. And Kriss Kross, the biggest rap group in the world at the time. And Michael Jackson, the biggest artist in the world. Like, how crazy was that?
Again, more hindsight, because at the time it was all moving fast. It was 3 months in Europe, and obviously Michael Jackson production and everything was amazing. They gave us 2 lights, I think 2 rows of lights, and the volume went from 0 to 10. We might have got a 3.
The budget for this tour is $50 million. But
what
your budget is $50,000.
They we was on the same stage. It's just they say the production for Mike, which is appropriate. But being there, feeling it, experiencing it, meeting Michael Jackson, the education of Kriss Kross, not only just that tour, but the whole experience when you're that big, the education for me, because I was like 20 something. And I remember every little bit of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Whereas Chris and them, even before Chris Kelly passed, he was like, I don't really remember. I had to show him a picture. Oh, remember this or video. You know what I mean? But it was so incredible. It educated me throughout my whole career. I still can go back and say and look at different things that I've learned in that period of time, because Kriss Kross and that experience was everything. Every commercial.
No, that was huge.
Every TV show. You know what I mean? Where money comes from. Yeah. You know what I mean? Watching Michael Jackson, a guy who, even if he got tired on stage, you couldn't really tell. He didn't let the background dancers outshine him. He was always working to show, no, I know you're here to see me. I'm going to work like everybody else or harder than everybody else. So, he was incredible. I mean, I could talk a lot about it.
I never had the opportunity to see Mike in concert. Did you, Reese?
No.
Yeah, I always saw on TV the people passing out and stuff. Did you experience that? Did you see them in the stands passing out?
All of that's real. Now, I don't know sometimes if, art imitates life.
Right.
Life imitates art. But what you see, the way people act and all of it is very real. And to me, Mike fed a lot into it, meaning, at the end of this show, this was the Dangerous tour. Okay, so at the end of the Dangerous tour, he literally flew off stage with his jetpack.
Wow.
I don't know if y'all know that. Yeah. It was a part of the show. He flew off the stage with his jetpack. So half the audience would try to run out the stadium. Now we're talking about 75 to 100,000 people trying to run out the stadium to find him.
Right.
So that looks like chaos. And then next thing you know, you see a van pull out and it's a glove waving. Like there was a lot of misdirection, like a magician. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. All this plans. Now, Michael Jackson did not fly out.
Right.
They already switched that out with a real pilot. So where it might go, we don't know. I don't know. But there was 4 or 5 decoys everywhere. He fed into it, and they loved it.
That's amazing.
That was Mike. It was always a show on and off the stage to me, from what I could see. Because again, there were different periods of times where we were in the same hotel, the same space with him.
Right, I was going to ask that. Did y'all get to really converse and chill with Mike like that while on tour?
No, it took about 3 weeks for the band to chill and converse with us, for us to get cool with the band, and then eventually they let us fly on the jet with them a couple times and get off the tour bus. But Michael Jackson, I met him for the first time after the tour. This was Chris and Chris's second time. I think the first time they met Mike was on the video for Jam.
Right.
But we did the tour. We finished the last show, and after that show, security was directing us off stage like normal, but they directed us to an area that was set up where Mike was for photos and stuff like that. So we took a group photo. I remember standing right beside Michael Jackson. I was on the left of him. I put my arm around him, like, damn, he's shorter than me, or the same height or something. I just thought Mike was bigger than life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm 5'11", so I'm like, is he 5'10"? What's Mike? And so we took that group picture, and then Mike took a picture with Kriss and Kriss. He thanked us all for being on the tour. That was it.
That's amazing.
And I never got the photo.
You never got the photo?
I never got the photo, but what I did get about 7 or 8 years ago, I got footage from 4 shows. Because they used to record it from the front of the house.
Yeah.
From road manager Bobby, the road manager. He gave it to me on VHS. I was like, "Yo, is this us on the Michael Jackson tour?" And obviously I digitized it. And
did he use the soft voice or his real voice when you was talking to him?
I used the soft voice. I never heard that. I heard about Mike's real, black man voice, Negro voice. But I never heard it. I heard the soft voice.
So you mentioned the video, man. A lot of people are not aware that you archived like everything.
Yes.
Like what was it that I think a lot of us, we got caught up like when video cameras became affordable, like, oh man, I'm finna give me a little camcorder and tape everything, and that lasts for a little bit.
Yeah, it's like a Christmas gift.
Yeah,
Right.
But you have like footage.
Yes, footage, magazines, tapes, mini discs, DATs, you name it. I don't know what it is. I think one of the ways I would describe it is, first of all, DJs, especially back then, you had to keep up with records. And records are records, not just the musicals, what you hear, but it's a recording of a moment.
Yes.
Right? So DJs, by default, you're kind of a curator. And I think over the period of time, as formats changed, because cassettes were major. My mixes I used to do on V103 in the 80s, before we had a rap station here, were done on cassette. They were done on cassette, then we had to put them on a reel-to-reel, and they would play it from a reel-to-reel on V103. Wow. That's how you won't know, it wasn't even a cassette, it was a reel-to-reel, they would cue it up like this. So I have every last one of my cassettes. I have every last one of my reels. So once I became a DJ for Kriss Kross, the format was DATs. Mm-hmm. And also Jermaine taught me how to use the MPC 60, which is, then you put a floppy disk in that. Well, I had the floppy disk that Jermaine used to create Jump. I just kept it.
Yeah.
So by the time you take that and go all the way to here and now, the pack rap that I am, the archivist, which I wasn't trying to be, I just got a sentimental thing with it, and I would keep it. Then by the time I got my first real computer around 2001, I started making those things digital. And then you look up and your intern is Ludacris, and you look up and Nick Cannon, who was on a bus, married Mariah Carey when you introduced him to Mariah Carey when Brat was filming Glitter. You just look up and people have changed and things have happened. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now the rap station is on the 12th floor. When I got it, when it was on the old National Highway, and ants used to crawl on the ceiling. Yeah. Wow. Like you look up and life has changed. I'm looking back like, wow, look at this. I have footage of Birthday Bash #3 with Hot 107.9, which was Hot 97.5, and Lala running out there super scared, screaming and hollering, but super excited, introducing Big Pun. Where do you get that footage from? I don't know. If I'd have known that, I would have kept the camera on Lala 24/7. But it's just moments that I happen to have. And, I start doing licensing deals. I'm still trying to make sure I place that footage where it's going to be appreciated the most.
Right, I was going to ask you, like, over the years, you've become that guy. Like, hey, man, Nabs got it. Nabs got it. Right. Go holler at Nabs. Go holler at Nabs. He got it.
Right. Yeah, it just happened. I don't know. Even when Michael Jackson died, Jermaine would call and say, "Damn, Nabs, you got any pictures from the tour?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." No, I shared what I had. Not that I had, a whole lot. I wish I had a lot more, but I just kept up with it. I feel like it's a responsibility in a way because, I don't take credit for all of the amazing, rich things that's happened in my life. You know what I mean? I give a lot of it to God and being blessed. And not knowing where I was going to go, but just chasing my passion. Still doing it to this day. Still not knowing exactly where I'm going to be, but still believing in myself and knowing, just following my heart. It's just how it is. And so through that, having that footage, keeping the memories, being able to place it in the right time and place is a responsibility. Because and I'll say this last thing on that end is that Chris Kelly dying from Kriss Kross. Mm-hmm. I have Chris's last interview. I have an intervention with he and I. that was personal. I have a lot of things, but there's a right time and place I want to be able to present that, especially when his mom is comfortable to share that. You see what I mean? Like, so there's things that have happened that I just want to do it at the right time and space. So I don't let YouTube or Instagram be my. Yeah. I just tease it. I don't really let that be the outlet for what I feel I really have to share.
Yeah, because like I follow you on Instagram, and every once in a while you'll post the gym, and you'll see somebody like Jermaine Dupri leave a comment like, "God damn, you had that?"
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like somebody that's big time, like, "Wow, man, you had that the whole time." So
right.
You definitely got some stuff.
How much of this stuff is gonna make it into your documentary that you've been working on?
The documentary has been an interesting journey. I actually met with a guy named Tom, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I watched the documentary on the Alley Pat.
Alley Pat,
yeah, Alley Pat, one of the first black radio DJs in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I met his daughter, so I found out about his documentary, and Tom produced it. So I reached out to Tom, and I met with Tom, and I told him about my frustrations that I had with trying to get American DJ Story, which is my title for my documentary, in the right hands. And I started that journey around 2009. So before I start licensing footage, before I start even looking at it in that sort of way, I was trying to figure out, how do I get somebody to pay attention to this history that I have? And so as I was explaining different things to Tom, Tom was like, listen, man, it's a beautiful journey. That's the whole thing. It is not a destination when you embark upon wanting to tell stories and being a storyteller. So he said that's why you have license for ATRIs, or you've licensed footage for Ludacris' story, for his behind the music, and that's why it's bigger than just one story. He said there'll be a time for the right time and place for you and for American DJ Story, or whatever that story comes to be, but continue to curate and continue to be open to other projects. And so that's what I've tried to do. Licensing, and just if somebody's doing something credible and the footage that I have or images that I have can be added to that piece, you know, I kind of got more open to that. I can't really say what's going to happen with American DJ Store, like my own personal thing. I can use the radio station I'm dealing with right now to help expose it. I'm just trying to figure out when I'm going to do that.
Now, speaking of the station, Boom 1029, it's crazy. Like, I remember when these old school, or if you want to call it old school, classic rap stations started popping up here, popping up in Houston, the Bay Area, LA, different markets. And I was like, is this something that people are going to be behind, or is this that old radio game where we going to buy a station, flip the format, get the numbers up and sell it?
Right.
You know, which they do a lot of times with our music, with black music. Were you kind of worried about that when you went over there? Because you've been on Hot or been on V, you know, for a very long time.
Well, I wasn't really worried about it, and I'm not really worried about it now. I think I would compare Boom a direct line to Hot 97.5.
Okay.
Because it's the same company. And Hot 97.5, when it started, that very first year, I wasn't there, but I came the second year. And it was on Old National Highway. And every one of us that was on the air at that time, Shaka Zulu, Ramona DeBro.
Was KK and Bootleg still there?
KK and Bootleg was there before. I actually came and replaced them.
Okay.
Because they were doing a night show.
I think, you talking about before my time out here. KK, but I don't even remember them.
KK Holiday, they used to be on MTV.
Oh, yeah, I remember KK.
Yeah, KK Holiday and Bootleg.
Yeah, so there was a real challenge back then to make it something that would work. But I think us as jocks, we weren't really concerned. We were just having fun.
Right.
And I don't think we knew that. I mean, there's no way you're going to know that Ludacris is going to become who he has become, much less even a Jay-Z. Jay-Z was on his third album. I got him to perform at Kaya for free. It was no big deal. You know what I'm saying? He needed the exposure. I was like, I got to cry. I'm not going to pay you. You know what I'm saying? Like, what I'm going to do that for? You know what I mean? And it was like that. So now with the classic hip-hop station, it's still taking people and their passion to move it forward. And that's kind of what I'm bringing, at least I feel like I'm bringing to Boom, is bringing passion and connecting with the artists and saying, you know what, we're not playing per se everything that we should be playing. Here's some more suggestions. And again, it's a corporate company now. They They 20 years in the game now. It's not the Radio 1, the Hot 97.5 that it was back then. They got a real understanding of how to do what they do. But I think if they continue to allow personalities and jocks like myself to do what we do, it's a good marriage.
It's funny you say that because, it is a direct line. Because I remember the feeling I got from listening, to 97.5 the first day it came on. I think it came on, 4th of July, 95?
Yes, exactly.
And I remember, sitting in my mom's car, and I think they played, the same 6 songs that day. I think it was, Brat, Give It To You. I want to say maybe Dove Shack. I know it was, the same 5, 6 songs. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of got the same feeling from when Boom came back. Boom was kind of playing the same, 10 songs the first day. And I was like, I know this feeling from somewhere, man.
Right.
And it was ironic that a lot of those songs were the same songs that they were playing 20 years ago, too.
Very much so. Very much so. And even back then, groups like 8 Ball and MJG wouldn't even send out clean records. So we used to clean those records ourselves. You know what I mean? It wasn't... Yeah, I mean, they to sit there and say, let's make a clean edit, a pimp on my own rhyme, or lay it down. They was like, why would we do that? They're not playing this. There's no rap stations. Rap station was as a format didn't exist. So, but we were like, yo, we need to play it again. People, Big Swole, my guy Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne used to really go in that studio and edit on the reel to reel those records back then on Hot 97.5 to make sure we played them on the air. So here I am at Boom, right? Yesterday was my 1-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, appreciate it. And I'm telling you, even though they're old classic records, what I'm trying to do and move the artist forward with this format hasn't been done yet because this format is just existing. You know what I mean? It hasn't been done. We got to really understand that.
People love it though, man.
Yeah.
I got in the car Monday with my boy B Short, and he has a little commute, and he was like, man, if it wasn't for this station, bro, this commute would be murder. He was like, it's the only place to play the music I really want to hear.
Right.
You know what I mean? So y'all are doing a service, man. And it was funny because when I was a kid, I used to wonder, man, I wonder, when we get our parents' age, are they going to play LL? Are they going to play NWA? Are they going to play Cube? All the stuff we listening to now. Is there going to be a place for it?
Right.
Because, back in the 90s, you didn't know. Late 80s.
And what? It's funny you said it because, the first time I heard that idea, I actually thought it was absurd. And I was actually 17. I was actually 17 at the time. I remember seeing a Puff Daddy interview, and it might have been, right after Big died. He was like, no, Big's going to live forever. 20 years from now, we're going to have old school rap stations playing Big. And I was kind of just like, I don't know if I want to be listening to rap when I'm 40. Actually, they ain't going to be playing no Big in no 20 years, bro. That shit gone.
We didn't know.
Right.
We didn't know. It was so early and people hated on rap so much. You didn't really know.
Right. Listen, the same thing we used to do back then when we cared about it enough to listen to Hot 97.5 in the early days is the same thing we're doing now. If people did not listen to Boom, if they don't come to the events, if they don't support the fact that, for instance, I have Arrested Development this Saturday. Okay, if you say, okay, Arrested Development, I'm cool with listening to their music, I don't need to see them perform live again, then there's no need for the station, really. But I believe that people do want to see Arrested Development. I believe they do want to see Poor Righteous Teachers. I believe they would love to see Positive K perform I Got a Man.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's what that station is for, to me.
I think a lot of it goes into, the generation that we're in. I think hip-hop is finally getting to a point where folks don't feel so much I don't know if embarrassed is the word. They don't feel embarrassed for what they used to listen to. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because there was a time where it was I don't know if I'm going to want to ride around rock jamming 3-6 Mafia. I got my kids in the car, bro. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I want to just be bumping, riding dirty UGK. I got a towel in the back seat. But it's now I think a lot of folks that have grown up, they don't feel embarrassed by what they used to listen to.
They actually want to turn their kids on to these records, so that they know more than what they're just being exposed to. Because again, too, there's a harder, more aggressive edge to the music that's coming out now. Ooh. And kids are doing what they do to the point where sometimes we're playing them records. Me and my boss Hurricane Dave talked about it earlier today. Some of the things that we had to censor back then, you don't necessarily have to censor because it sounds a little soft now compared to what's being said on the radio and on TV.
Yeah,
TV is off the hook. They saying anything they want to say, bitch. Yeah. Ass, ain't they bitch ass?
So,
I don't know.
From your audience, from the numbers you get from radio and from what you see at events, are you surprised at all at how many people that aren't necessarily in their 30s and 40s that support, but it's people like in their 20s and teens also that support.
Not really surprised, because I always say it, a new record to you is when you hear it for the first time. You know, listen, man, you know, we were talking a little bit earlier off air about me boxing, right?
Yeah.
My boxing trainer is in his 60s, I think. And but you know, I think because he's so viral, you know, he's so viral and energetic. And he is constantly playing me records, brother, that I don't know, okay? And I've been a DJ since I was 13, you know? And it's like, oh, that's the source. That's what they use for that sample that Tribe played, blah, blah, blah. He plays a lot of jazz and funk, you know what I mean? And he's always, and when he's playing these records, he's like, oh, yeah, this dude used to jam in the club. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And we got to think about, especially when we talk about our people, you know, our parents didn't come up on hip-hop. You know, they came up on funk, soul, this, that, and third. And then we took it and we added the hip hop to it. You know what I mean? Exactly. So it's all of our music. So I'm saying that to say that for young people who are getting exposed to it through Boom, that's great. But they're also getting exposed to it by riding in the car with their big brother or their uncle or you know, however. But that record, when they hear it for the first time, it's still a new record. Does not matter when it came out. I can be in Europe, which is before Boom. 5 years I was running all around the country just trying to continue to get good work and from promoters around the world that appreciate true DJs. Constantly picking up records. I'm like, yo, I never heard this before. Oh yeah, that's 4 years old. It's a record out of Sweden. No, a new record is a new record. Yeah. It don't matter.
And it's funny you said, because like even like, you know, I volunteer a lot with kids, so like, you know, we don't always talk about music, but I do ask them, so what you listen to? And they'll tell me something that I was listening to when I was their age. And I kind of look at the music now the same way that, you know, you might see a young cat walking down the street in a Larry Johnson Charlotte Hornet jersey. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. So like they treat the music the same way they treat, you know, fashion and Jordans. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I want the original. I don't want this Jordan 10 with this fake leather on it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Exactly. 1998, you did a deal with Sony and came out with an album, DJ Nabs in the Lab Live album that mixed, you know, the stuff you were doing at Kaya, the live performances, as well as with just mixes of you mixing classic records. And you also introduced Ludacris as a rapper on that album, man. Right. For you getting that deal with Sony and being able to put out an album, like people always talk about Flex's album and stuff like that, but you got brothers down here doing it as well. Like, how big was that for you?
Hindsight is 20/20, man. At that time, let me tell you, I was at the radio station full time. I was doing 3 clubs a week for the station, and I was doing Club Kaya. And Kaya was my night, so I took the door. Yeah. And that record deal was the same relationship that got me with Kriss Kross. Michael Malden was running Columbia Records at the time. Ludacris was interning and working with me at Hot. Come on, you with me? Say party! Come on! When that's done, Ludacris. Next up inside the lab. Check this out. I'm in the lab with Nabs, mixing up with these chemicals. And I grab the mic like your pop grabbed his genitals. I hope you took all your vitamins and minerals, cause it's my first time with both audio and visual. Step to me is kinda critical and pitiful, kinda like the gap between analog and digital. Represent for all outlaws and criminals, animals. Get a Benz with Nabs mechanicals. How do you like that? It's Ludacris Black and DTP 2-0 and Fake got my back, and it's DJ Nabisco wrecking any mix show, hitting from College Park to San Francisco. It's fully automatic and naturally a habit for Ludacris to sneak up in your girl fat rabbit. So Nabs, why you make the women scream and shout?
I'm bound to wreck your body and say turn the party out. I'm bound to wreck your body and say turn the party out. I'm bound to wreck your body. I'm bound to wreck your body.
So I did a mix CD, promotional mix CD of me mixing live from Kaya, because I always was about that real DJing. And even before the fake DJ movement, I was on the real DJing tip before I even knew that shit was even coming.
The button pushers.
Yeah, so I was like, yo, this is me mixing live, and the crowd was always live at Kaya. So to record that mixtape, I had an engineer come in with an 8-track, and I dropped mics from the ceiling. So I literally was able to go back with an 8-track board and mix the live feedback from everybody singing the records onto my mixtape, and I put it out. And Michael Malden gave me a deal based on that mixtape. I just had to go through sample clearance hell,
man,
to get
you
a Columbia
had a lot of records on that joint.
Yeah, listen, I had to chop and edit that thing up a million ways from Sunday just to get a legal version that we could sell. It took a year.
I'm sure.
And in that year, Well, by the end of that year, Michael had got replaced at Columbia Records. I lost my deal, and but the album was out. I had got my advance and all that, and I don't know. I was like, yeah, it was great. I was happy to put it out there, but I was also so busy with what I was really, the stuff I was really doing every day. In hindsight, all said and done, one of the things I really love about DJ Khaled is that in his journey of doing records, he started focusing on what the music industry really is about when it comes to releasing a song, which is a hit record. Mm-hmm. And I think if I had to say anything to any of the DJs putting out records now, first of all, if you're going to make a record about, I don't know, drugs or this or whatever, be able to stand behind that 20 years from now. Don't do it because you think it's going to make you win.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what I see. Khaled set a real dope standard by making hit records and understanding that it's about a hit when you make an album. When I did my album, it was just an extra check. It was cool. It was great. That's why I say in hindsight, I wish I'd have had if I had the opportunity again, I took some real time to get some real people involved and had got me a hit record with that opportunity. But I'm happy with, that was me as a turntablist showing true DJ skills.
Yeah.
And that's what I can hang my hat on.
And you know what? Like, before I move on to the next question, I got to point this out. Nabs is still a competitor to the core to this day because, I'm sure everybody in Atlanta has been to all vinyl everything, the party where, all the DJs, they come out, they roll their crates out, for one night and play vinyl. Yeah. Nabs showed up to one of the first ones. And I think it was like they had like Cutmaster Swift, DJ Tune. They had some heavy hitters in there. And I think Nabs saw that they were just playing records. They were not battling. They were not scratching. And Nabs turned his ass right back around and left. Like, y'all niggas ain't battling? Y'all ain't... What are y'all doing here, bro? This ain't what I do.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I almost feel like, man, you ever watch old movies of performers and singers back in the day, how competitive they were, and you like that. It's an era that we didn't live.
Yeah.
And so... when we were young in the 80s, you had to be able to do it to even call yourself that. Well, time has passed. 90s came. 2000s have come. We where we are now, where you can just make yourself anything you want to by just, creating an account and putting a profile pic up, right? You can just say you are whoever or whatever you want to be. And if you get enough followers, somebody going to believe that, right? So skills is like, people want to say, that don't really matter. I'm just going to say that shit has helped me not have to get a job for 25 years. You know what I'm saying? It has sustained me learning the craft. And if I was a singer, then I would look at myself as those guys back in the day. Those true singers, that Patti LaBelle. When Patti LaBelle hit that stage, Patti LaBelle don't need no hit record.
Right.
Patti LaBelle can take it wherever she want to take it. And that's how I feel when I get on the turntable. So I don't give a damn if you're young, old, Spanish, black, Atlanta, Paris, drop Nabs off, and I'm going to go.
Right.
That's how I feel. You know what I mean?
With everything that you've done and all the things that you've accomplished and you're still accomplishing, do you feel like your name should be bigger than it is nationally?
Yes, I do feel that way. Me and my mom talk about it a lot. I actually think a lot of it got to do with the South, for one, to be honest with you. It's been a slow grind, but and it started with the MCs, how long it took for our MCs out of this area to get some respect. And then the DJs, I think we're starting to follow. You know what I mean? And I used to say back in the day, a lot of deals were done outside of Atlanta. You know what I mean? And deals with major brands and corporate brands, and that's how people can get big. I mean, at the end of the day, a record company is a corporate brand. You know what I mean? So even when my album came out, Funkmaster Flex, DJ Clue, and my album came out, my project got the least attention. You know what I mean? I would go to photo shoots with these guys, and I would get the least attention, and I felt it, and I was like, it's because I'm representing Atlanta. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but I've come to grips with that, in a sense that my body of work, which should be here after I'm gone, is the thing that I hang my hat on it, man. I mean, I can look back at my young self and say, man, you really cared about what you was doing. You know what I mean? And I still have it now. Yeah. It's like,
And it's crazy you say, because, like, man, I'm from here, obviously, and it's like I remember getting, mixtapes from, like Big Oomp and all them, or, right. The old Edward J tapes. And, I remember I would go to school And, you know, it'd always be that New York dude that would come to school like, yeah, I got the new Clue.
Right.
I got Cash Money. And I'm like, your shit is good, but our shit is just as good. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, all right, this is cool what they doing with this song, but I didn't hear them mix, you know, Al Green For the Love of You with an Outkast record, though.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't hear them do that.
Right.
You know, I heard them do some things, but I mean, our shit is just as good, if not better sometimes, man.
Right.
Is that, I mean... Do you feel like the city, and just not even the city, I know that we know people talk about Edward J and Big Oomp and all of that, but it's very niche. And then in Miami, people talk about, you know, what's the DJ crew that Luke always shouts out, the old school DJ crew?
Was it Uncle Al and
Uncle Al? Then you had Jam Pony.
Jam Pony Express, and then you had in Houston, you had Screw, and then later Michael Watts. But it feels like all three of these things are completely and totally disjointed and unrelated because they're three different regions. Whereas in the Northeast, everything was New York centric. Like Philly has the best DJs in the world for the most part during that period, but everything was like New York and then everything else. Whereas here, Atlanta got their own scene. Miami got their own scene. Texas, but everything get lumped as in, oh, that's the South. If you go every other place.
I talked to Cash Money. I talk to them cats to this day, and I wouldn't lump them all together because they had their differences. In their issues.
Philly and New York.
I think that's not known to the rest of the country.
Well, let me say this. I think this is really critical, and this goes back to storytelling, and. This goes back to storytelling. You know, nobody I think would disagree that, you know, hip hop as a culture started in New York City. You know, and obviously it had its influences from Jamaica with Kool Herc and all that. If you really want to go back, so in the '90s, to me, because of all of the rap records and the culture coming out of New York in that area in the '80s, we studied it in the '90s. So all the stories we heard was about the Bronx and this and the third. We got into the 2000s. And even more recently, that's why stories of the 90s leading up to the 2000s have starting to be told now, which is why it's so important to tell our stories. I don't care if it's Cascade, which is lightweight about jelly beans, right? Yeah. Or, you know, obviously TLC story, the behind the music on all these other artists, ATL Rise. You know, it's more stories that need to be told. And once these stories are told, people will become aware. You know what I'm saying? We can speak regionally of Edward J and the influence of it, but really it's about continuing to tell those stories. To me, So Def story ain't been told. You know what I mean? I'm saying by the time it's told and left, not even for our peers, not for the ones who might come up and be like, oh no, I'm from New York, I don't really care to hear about that. Them kids, they're the future. They need the stories so they have all the pieces, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
I can read a story about Russell Simmons, Larry Smith, Def Jam, and then I can read a story about Suge Knight, Death Row, and all that. I wasn't nowhere near none of those stories.
Talk a little bit about your DJ crew, man.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, the Mad DJs.
Yeah,
it's really not a DJ crew, I guess yet. Here it is, Michael Malden again. Michael Malden is he's just I don't know,
instrumental.
He's just my mentor. Like, he told me basically, he said, Nabs, you have a lot of influence. You're at the point in your life and career and at the age where, you know, you gotta endorse other upcoming DJs. And, you know, I was indirectly the Mad DJ just because of the DVD I had put out, Diary of a Mad DJ, and I would hashtag it, you know, just to say, you know, I don't mind being the bad guy when it comes to speaking up for DJ culture. So you want to say I'm mad and bitter or whatever, so be it. You know, I care about DJing and DJs. So from that, Michael said, you know, with his Scream brand, we decided to do a thing called the Ultimate Mad DJ, which is actually what this is.
Right.
And it was a DJ competition, and we chose 12 DJs from different states to compete to become the Ultimate Mad DJ, and then that winner would go on the Scream tour. So that was last year, and the tour actually just is coming to fruition. So DJ Double J, which is actually a guy from my hometown, from Durham.
Wow.
He was a DJ since he was 6 years old, and he's now like 19 or 20. And he came to Atlanta. He won the contest fair and square. So he's on the Let's Dance tour that starts in about 2 weeks. That's sponsored by Scream and Live Nation as the Ultimate Mad DJ champion for this year.
That's big, man.
Yep.
That's a good look for him. Now, I can't imagine DJing at 6 years old. You got to be cold at this point.
And that's what's crazy is there's some that's happening now. I mean, DJ Just comes from that, from DJ Just from New York, who was Bow Wow's DJ for many years, was just a kid, just naturally had it. And Double J was the same thing in Durham. He just naturally had it. Like, no aspirations about money or fame. How could he? He was just a kid, but just great at it. And I see kids on Instagram all the time. That's really good. You know what I mean? On turntables.
Yeah, that's amazing. You mentioned Luda earlier, man. How is it for you to see that dude go from being your intern to being a worldwide star?
How did he even become your intern? Was it harassment, or did you find him?
It's funny because Kriss he does not even say it out his mouth that he was an intern, but I didn't pay him, so that's where the word comes from.
No, I don't work for Nabs. I work with Nabs.
Right. He'd probably like to refer it more to with. But Kriss, back then, I don't know. I got introduced to Kriss. I thought his spirit was great, good kid, like worked hard. And back then, we used carts to play songs and commercials, and carts look like 8-track tapes. And part of his responsibility was to put my carts up every show or get my next set of carts. And obviously, I thought he was a great rapper. However, I heard him for that first time, so I let him do my Fat 7 at 7 promos. He was always rapping, and he cut my commercials. He'd rap on that, and but again, when I was working at Hot 97.5, I'd already had all these experiences with Kriss Kross. I was telling you before, what I mean. I wasn't rich or nothing like that because obviously I needed that job, but I had tons of experience by this point. And so, I used to share a lot of information with Kriss, and I introduced him to Kriss and Kriss, because Kriss and Kriss was, from Kriss Kross was thinking about starting a label. So I thought Kriss and Kriss. And then they had Chris Terry, so it was going to be 4 of them. So it was all going to be the C connection. But that didn't happen. And, so, Kriss doing, I'm not surprised, but at the same time, to see that is still an amazing thing, because there's one thing for people to become stars and you're still trying to figure out how to get in the game, and then becoming in the game, then you see Kriss or Lala, and I mentioned Nick Cannon and people like that because I later was on a Nickelodeon tour with a bunch of young people. Michelle from Destiny's Child was singing backup for Monica, what I mean. And again, Kenan Thompson, was afraid of girls, so I used to be on the back of the tour bus talking to him about it. I mean, what I mean? That's something to just be living and just be around something. Not, you can't plan these things, and you watch. And I want to tell the Nick Cannon story, the Nick Cannon Mariah Carey story, real quick. I was on a Nickelodeon tour in 1999. I want to say I had been fired from Hot 97.5 for doing too much, as it was explained, which was my record deal and my club nights.
Getting too big. And so my manager found me the Nickelodeon tour. Now, mind you, I think they were doing the Hard Knock Life tour at that time. So I was like, what the fuck am I doing on a Nickelodeon tour? Why can't I be on the Hard Knock Life tour? Like that? But that tour ended up being one of the greatest things I've ever done, and formed some great relationships with people like Kenan Thompson. Anyway, so I'm on this with these kids. I'm like 20, whatever I am. I'm definitely like 22. Yeah, I'm definitely older than them. I'm going to the 18 and under club with them. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Whatever. So Megan Good was on the tour bus.
Looking for the girl with the 21 and over band.
Yeah, I'm being chaperoned. So Megan Good, Lamaya Good was dancing for Nick Cannon. DJ D-Rec was not DJing then. He was the choreographer for Nick Cannon.
Wow.
So Megan Good was on the tour bus doing nothing but just hogging up the bathroom. Kenan Thompson was on the bus, and other people like I said, Tanitra, aka Michelle, was singing backup for Monica. So it's different stuff like that. But anyway, Brad was also filming the movie Glitter with Mariah Carey in Canada. So when we got to Canada on the tour, I called Brad, said, we want to come over and say what's up to you. So Lamaya Good and Nick Cannon both got in the cab with me to go meet Mariah and Brad. So it's funny that they get married years later. You understand what I'm saying?
That's amazing.
So I just be at home sometimes just scratching my head like the world is a trip. Yeah. You understand?
Small
that's
world.
it. Yeah.
Super small world.
Yes, it is.
You know what I'm saying? Like you brought up, how you seen, a lot of, like young children picking up DJing, but, we got a lot of grown folks picking up DJing too.
True.
Some of them ain't, paying the dues and coming up through the same ranks, but you know, cause you mentioned like that whole fake DJ movement folks was throwing out, which there is, you know, but like how do you feel about, you know, people that want to get into DJ culture, even though they don't have to necessarily pay the same dues, like they don't have to go learn under somebody, don't have to carry anything. Right. They can really just be that person that right. I'm going to go on SoundCloud. I'm going to study though. I'm going to study. Right. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to buy turntables. I'm going to learn how to work what I do have, and you know, kind of just get gigs out the sky. Right. You know what I'm saying? More than a person that been working. Yeah.
You know? I was initially pissed. I mean, I'm talking about when I did a video blog on MySpace when MySpace was popping. Yeah. Okay, 2006, 2007, talking about fake DJs because I started to feel it. So over time, I've mellowed out and I understand it, and I've actually seen some of these people that I didn't give a lot of respect to. I will give them some respect now. Even Jermaine Dupri. You know, Jermaine started DJing some years ago, and I was like, oh God, you know what I mean? I immediately am not going to be DJing any more social death parties, and that really became the case. Yeah. I have not done, because I was the go-to guy for that, and I felt like that was my position. So I took that personal for a little while, but over time, I've let that kind of go, and I've even Jermaine has said many times, Nabs, you inspire me, and that has helped me relax a little bit. All right. And Jermaine, he's always he always had turntables. Don't get me wrong. Jermaine would do cuts and scratches on his own records. You know what I mean? So, but I just felt like him stepping into that lane and being who he was. I was like, he gonna get all the gigs and all the money. You know what I mean? And this was really what I do. I can't just go be Jermaine Dupri. Right. I'm like stuck being DJ Nabs. You know what I'm saying? And so, I guess to this day, and I'm just using Jermaine as an example. Obviously, there's other people. Even when I see Snoop Dogg DJing the gig on Hammer, I'm seriously MC Hammer DJing the gig. I'm like, I just shrug my shoulders. What can you do, right? You can't really stop it. And I love Snoop Dogg, but at the end of the day, I said, my job is to get on there and keep doing what Jermaine said. Keep being the inspiration. Not that I'm an inspiration for all DJs, but for those that's trying to get to that level, I have been doing it since I was 13. It's like muscle memory. Like I just do it. You know what I mean? I breathe it, and I studied all the greats, and I continue to watch and learn from other people. So that's all I really know to do.
It kind of seems like the same thing that's been happening and still happening. With sports commentary. For years you only see Brian Gumbel, James Brown. These experts in ties, but then when cats start retiring, like, oh, hold on, man. What did linebacker go on here talking about, man?
Right,
what I'm saying? Well, they got the information. They got the experience. They can go, but they still need that quote-unquote voice of reason up there to kind of like balance everything out. Like, all right, look, there's people watching this show that do not know what a 3-4 defense is. Right. They don't know the X and O's. You still need us to break this down for you.
See, that's why for me, and I always say this, whether it's my record deal in 98 or it's the Kriss Kross gig, one thing that Michael Martin, Jermaine's father, has been to me, is that voice of reason, is that person that's older than me and can look at me from a perspective. He can look at me and Jermaine and Brat and everybody and Bow Wow and everybody and say, damn near like y'all my kids, if he want to. You know what I'm saying? He has that sort of perspective. So when I get my panties in a bunch, as they say, right, he can help me.
Yeah, because he's seen it all.
Because he's seen it all. And, he sometimes when he talks about hip hop, he like, you guys really treat it like your religion. Now you gotta think anybody that's in their 60s, they're not necessarily a hip hop kid. Right. I mean, you know what I mean? They were before hip hop, but everything is still relevant. I mean, if Earth, Wind and Fire, like the music business is the music business, and I think sometimes we so hip hop driven we can forget that Earth, Wind and Fire. You can probably draw a line between Earth, Wind and Fire and Kendrick Lamar somewhere down the line. You know what I'm saying? In terms of influence and performance and shows and awards. You know what I mean? So we sometimes get too stuck on hip hop. So when I got somebody like Mike Malden that can just look at me and say, you know what? It's not about you always being on stage. Now endorse somebody else, or you've done it long enough. You have the pedigree. You know what I mean? You can be the voice of reason, like you just said, right? In the sports cast scenario. So that's just important to have, because you can always get caught up in your own head.
Since you're here, I want to ask you this, man. Like, you have been DJing in Atlanta for decades and whatnot. How do you feel about the I like to call it a myth because I don't really trust it. Like, there's always been this myth to some this law that you have to have a song that goes hard in the strip club to get a hit in Atlanta.
Right,
like,
no.
I never quite bought into that. If anything, I think that myth kind of diluted the quality of music. I think cats started getting lazy, being like, well, if I take my jam and that song to the strip club and the girls like it and it become a hit, why not just make a strip club song?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I think it like made a lot of people lazy to
That's
a
funny.
degree.
Remember when BET had BET Uncut?
Yeah.
And songs like Tip Drill and obviously Ludacris's Pussy Poppin' fit that.
Right.
Definitely.
Then you had artists that were making videos for BET Uncut.
Yep.
They didn't go nowhere else. That's the same thing I think with the strip club. I think two perspectives with regards to the strip club. One, as a person who's been going since I've lived in Atlanta, right? I got my perspective of records that kind of, they like throw the records on the wall and whatever stick, and then, okay, yeah, we broke that record. Okay, I also know that can be true, but I also know many records that have ran the gamut of the strip club scene. They didn't make it a radio and didn't make it nowhere else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. For whatever reason. So I think it's a movement. I think that the strip club DJs in particular, the coalition DJs, have taken advantage of the fact that a lot of attention was brought to strip clubs and that records were being broken out of there. But I don't think it's, like you say, like, make a record for a strip club, or if it's played in a strip club, it's going to work. Here's a record, and I'm going to be real nasty with it. I always use this as my example. There was this record that's playing in a strip club all the time, and you never heard it nowhere else. Drop that dick off in their mouth. Drop that dick off. Yeah. Right? They was running that record in the ground. You can clean that record up. You can do what you want to do. It's not going outside that strip club. You know what I mean? And there's lots of records like that. You know
I had never heard that song.
I guess
I'm telling
correct
you,
me if I'm wrong, because I hope I'm probably talking about the same song, but the one I used to hear was "Drop That Dick Off in That Hole." It wasn't mouth. It was like "Drop that dick off in that hole." I hope we're not talking about.
You know what? It might be the same record, and
that was the clean version, Mari.
That might be the clean version, and their mouth is the clean. Right. I'm gonna have to call my partner DJ D Nasty because he's the one who used to run that. But that, that's my example of because I always talk about that.
Yeah.
So
another thing that you did before we go that kind of influenced other things was the video mixes you was doing for Fox 5 Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, there was a with the Serato Scratch Live software where we can scratch MP3s. They made a plug-in where you can scratch videos. And I got super excited about that. And I started putting video mixing in all my sets until it really started becoming a problem because people would stop dancing and they would just look at the video.
Right.
So then, it kind of died out. But during that period of time when I was really excited about it, I actually met with a good friend of mine named Mike Smith, who was working at Fox 5 in the marketing department. And we came together to do a mega mix where I actually took TV shows, TMZ, Hell's Kitchen, some other shows, and I made a mix of different sounds from each different shows, and we put it over top of an original track and made a 30-second mega mix type commercial. And I also was sprinkling in a few clips from my American DJ story because I was trying to bring some attention to that story.
But other companies and other stations started doing that too, right?
I noticed that. Yeah, I feel like it was I guess it was groundbreaking when people. I mean, I even saw on one of the sports channels they started doing video mixes as well. But yeah, I just did it and was moving on, man. I wasn't paying attention. I mean, if you can patent every idea, shoot.
Yeah, that's real.
Be paid,
man. I definitely appreciate you coming through. This was a great conversation. Unfortunately, for the people that listen tomorrow, we gonna be partying with you tonight at L Bar for the 1 year anniversary. Our homie DJ Wally Sparks and Corey Sparks event before Serato. So, hey man, we had a really good time, y'all.
I appreciate it. We'll tell you about it.
Exactly. But man, please let them know where they can follow you on IG and all that good stuff.
Yep. DJ Nabs in Lab. DJ NABSINLAB. That's Twitter and Instagram, and Facebook is DJ Nabs.
For sure, most definitely. You listen to Day One Radio. We'll see y'all next week.